okay, sir?
It is perfectly all right, except that you have to click on the goblet below so that it goes on to the slideshow. You know, at the bottom of your page, there are 4 little squares, a bigger square on the right hand side, and a goblet. You are right. That's lovely.
Shall I begin, sir?
Oh yes, it's perfect. I think I can see it. Kalraji, you can see it?
Yes, sir.
Can you read it for me?
Yes, sir. Yes,
That's
sir.
the proof. Yes, go ahead and read it for us. Amrita will be helped that way.
Honor the space between no longer and not yet.
I have not understood it. So she has to explain it to me. Come on, Amrita, beta. Come on.
Father's Day. I need Professor Handu's blessings to go forward with this 40 to 50 minutes presentation, which happens to be my first experience on as a webinar. So, sir, with your blessings, I begin I go forward with what I want to promote and what I want to share. And I just thought about when sir asked me what to on what topic.
I'm sorry.
Thing that clicked my mind was the change. Professor Handu has always promoted this beautiful sentence that change is the only thing that is constant. So in this lockdown period, many things have undergone a lot of transition. So this is the time when we all are vacillating between the period of feeling messy, de-irritated, and uncertainty is there packed up in compartments. But the problem with living in the next phase is that I take the control of the evolution. So, seeing to the challenge, we need to honor the space between what has been there and what is yet to come. So if we go forward with what actually happened, that when this corona popped in, people feared when country's corona count was 100, but there is no fear when it was above 1,70,000. The answer lies in the psychological view of people with a philosophy that is been very well said, promoted by Kubler-Ross model, which says that when a human goes through any tragedy, natural disaster, or an accident, they pass through 5 stages. The first one, that is refusal to believe such a thing never happened. That is denial stage. For example, when Corona came, they never believed. Even there was repeated denial that it will not spread to our place due to hot climatic conditions, and many such denial philosophies were there. Then once this denial gained mobility, they got anger. For example, over the loss of income, the stagnancy of the income, and the loss of normal life due to the lockdown. Then came the bargain stage. That is they started inwardly lamenting that the corona may not have come and there should not have been a lockdown at all. And following this bargain stage, we followed the depression stage, that it happened like this and goes into a mental stress or a depressive state of mind. Then finally, this lockdown gained the acceptance, that which became the last stage. That the other way around is to accept it. When you get used to certain situation, you start accepting it. For example, we started living up with the fact of corona. So these 5 levels are not limited to corona alone, but it applies to all the challenges in human life. And the worst sufferers are the ones who do not reach acceptance level and remain stuck in the previous levels. So, this is a beautiful transition that we have experienced through this lockdown period. So, going on to what exactly this transition is, it implies to the concept of and the psychological process that an individual goes through to come to terms in new situation. For example, life transitions occurs as a result of planned or unplanned events and changes that occur in our everyday life. So if we go on to what the depth of what transition is, we can just divide it into a few types of transitions. That is, the first one, if we see that it's unanticipated, it's anticipated transition, which actually we are prepared to. That is like it can occur in one's life. Often these transitions are planned and believed to be a part of the natural cycle. For example, like if we go like if we take graduating from school and then getting a job, getting married and having children, and this is all an anticipated transition, and the timing of these anticipated transition can impact the potential of learning. Then going on to the next type of transition, we can take it up as unanticipated transition. That means that it involves the events that are not expected and do not follow any particular any particular line of action in an adult's life. Like for example, an unanticipated transition can be like becoming ill and or having a car accident that causes you to be unable to work. And the beauty of this transition is that it can be more stressful than an anticipated one, but the learning and the personal growth can be more. Like all of you on the screen will very well be convinced with this sort of my explanation, that such transitions, these unanticipated transitions, do leave behind a lot of learning for us. So like then the third one is the new event transition. That is that those transitions which are expected to happen but it does not. Like for example, not having children. Like when we get married and we don't have children, like the anticipated transition is that we will have children, but sometimes this does not happen. So this is some sort of new event transition. And or like being in school, like profession, in a school business, there are sometimes we face situations when the students leave the school due to some financial crisis. So all these come into new event transition, which we never expect to happen. And the fourth type of transition is it gradually occurs and an individual is not prepared for the progression. And this regulates more competency and skills. This means that, like suppose if we join a new job, so or if we so a new job requires more sort of competencies, and this has an impact in our lives, relationship and routines, which get altered accordingly. So these were the four types of transitions that we face in our lives. So my dear leaders, today we will be talking about the transition in education. So I will be just throwing some lights on transition in education post-pandemic, which falls under the unexpected transition. So far, it fell into the category of expected transition because we used to follow the traditional pace. But since COVID-19, we as leaders have transformed it and handled the crisis of the unexpected pandemic with a new version instilled in the style of educating children. So how this transitional shift of expected transition to the unexpected has taken place, let us see. So pre-pandemic definition, like before this COVID-19, we used to promote education as which is a process of receiving or giving systematic instruction in a school to develop learning in a conducive environment and to optimize the skill development and acquired knowledge. And education is the process by which character is formed, strength of mind is increased, intellect is sharpened, and a result of which an individual can stand on his own feet. What are the cardinal principles of imparting knowledge? So if we throw light on this, first, one must believe that each child is inherently blessed with a great potential and infinite power to grow. The action just for the sake of it is not enough. There must be an element of devotion in it so that it becomes enjoyable. And what makes it enjoyable is a strong driven urge to facilitate students to learn. So this was all about education pre-pandemic. So before 22nd of March, before the lockdown came into our existence. Now, if we move towards a transitional stage of post-pandemic definition of education, we can put up into these words that these days take most aspects of human life on a planet and they are undergoing a lot of critical transition. The transitional classrooms have been replaced by virtual ones, which came as a shock for all of us, and we were trying to move our limbs, our mind, and brainstorm. And really, we took it as a challenge, and we came out with successful colors. And the school uniforms. Within the 4 months of the virus,
Amrita beta, could you do me a favor? You have your mobile with you, Amrita? Connect your mobile hotspot. Connect your mobile hotspot along with the connectivity that you have, right? So that this loss of connection will not affect you. We couldn't hear you. In this part of the slide, we couldn't hear you. You started very well in this slide, but then we lost your voice.
इसका एक तना हो गया और एक खरीदार होगी वो क्या है वो हमारी का बोला नहीं ना सुना कौन है उस तुम्हारी पास तो भी बैठो ना लगा हां कहां से बोल तो
Bear with us, all of you. We are waiting for the connectivity to come up again. Amrita is not with us at the moment.
Ji, Arora ji, please. Arora ji.
Haji, sir.
If you could request Amrita and somehow she hears us, I would advise her that she connects her mobile hotspot sir, also.
Sir, should I call her on her number? Should I call her on number?
I think yes.
Yes, it's better. Neeraj, please call her.
जी, sir, मैं call कर रहा हूँ sir.
उनसे ये भी बता दीजिए कि वो अपना मोबाइल हॉटस्पॉट भी करे.
She is joining. She is joining now. She is joining. आ गई.
Hello, disconnected my phone. This means कि आ रही है मैम.
आ गई है, मैंने कहा सर उनको होस्ट बना दीजिए.
बना दूंगा सर.
There was some network problem.
No worry. Amrita beta,
Amrita
can
ji,
you hear me? Can you hear me, Amrita?
Yes, sir.
Sir,
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
if you would connect are you working on a laptop or on a mobile?
Sir, on a laptop.
Connect your laptop and your mobile phone on hotspot. You know hotspotting, you are aware of that, na? The mobile
Yes,
data, the mobile data will sustain your Zoom connectivity even if you lose your connectivity. I recently learned it. My granddaughter taught me. I lost my connectivity. She connected me immediately with my mobile data and said, always do that. So now you are all right, but you will have to go one slide back, beta. Go one slide back.
Sir.
Because
Right.
we didn't hear the first part you explained. You are going for, yes.
This slide.
In the pre-pandemic, you were able to explain. Till then, I could hear you, but we couldn't hear the post-pandemic. Thank you, Bitya. Thank you. Go ahead.
Okay. So, education these days take most aspects of human life, which is undergoing a lot of critical transitions. The transitional classrooms have been replaced with virtual ones, which we never expected. And the school uniform and benches and desks has resolved to comfortable sofas and tracksuits. This unexpected changes in everyday life within this 4 months of the virus have made us think which we never could have. For the first time in recent history, we are experiencing lockdown of global proportions, and perhaps this is the first time that the flow of education has been disrupted to this extent. So, however, one thing is clear, that it is high time we rethink what education actually truly entails. So, if you see that we are temporarily closed, this is the transitional phase that we all are experiencing. We are still to learn what education means, and it cannot be limited to just textbooks, as many believe to be the case. So, owing to the coronavirus, a realization has dawned on us with appreciation just how globalized of a world we live in today. Education must adopt to the needs of the time to become the common denominator of the intellectual connection. We never imagined that we could teach on this platform and to this extent. Like what SOPs were being laid down in our academic calendar and the plannings and everything that were prescribed and as very important agenda has become a normal agenda for all of us during this time. So right now, the education system should be a catalyst in bringing about the social change and instilling a sense of social responsibilities in the individuals. So this pandemic is high time to take decisive action and move towards an education system that carries the social aspect of the educative process as a significant part of an institution. And it should be focused in bringing about social change in the vision of the educators, which work as a catalyst to set a new normal. And the first step to this transformational journey is to redefine the role played by an educator in bringing global connection in the post-pandemic world. Then, because traditionally, educators are considered to be the vessels of knowledge, and students are only able to gain that knowledge by coming in close contact or proximity within the educator in the classroom setting. But now the textbook knowledge has transitionally overlapped with social and e-learning. Today, the narrative is changing in favor of a more inclusive model that takes into account the concepts like distant learning and e-classroom with a focus on sustaining education through all adversities. So life in the year 2020 has made it very clear that the dissemination of knowledge neither requires a classroom, nor does it need constant physical presence of a teacher to be an effective leader. However, what it needs desperately is an adaptable and flexible approach towards learning and teaching. Moreover, the current scenario is asking for nurturing social sensibility, conducive environment, good relationship between the parents and the teachers, and peer grouping through different approaches, and more development on emotional intelligence and respecting the creative abilities of both students as well as the teachers. I would like to repeat here that I'm not talking about just to develop the emotional intelligence of the students. I'm talking about the emotional intelligence of the teachers also, who find themselves in high and conventional situation. We need to work on that. Am I audible?
Yes,
Hello?
yes, audible.
Much audible, very much audible.
So when we move on to what exactly the picture of schools nowadays is, so as per my perception, I think that schools have become a sort of safety nets, because it has this situation has changed millions around the globe, and the perception and new solutions for education can bring much needed innovations. So given the digital divide, new shifts and educational approaches, we can widen the quality gaps, because in a matter of few weeks, things have changed, and students are approaches have really widened up, and these changes have given us a glimpse of how education can change for the better in constrained situations as well as more challenging situations. So, though it is too early to judge, but let us all plan to go about it, and it will affect education systems all around the world if we plan it on those lines. And because with schools gradually reopening, it will be very crucial to plan how schools will be able to pursue their mission of supporting vulnerable children and their families psychologically. For those with tough times, there are some sort of family challenges also going on in the families of children, and they are too much in the same environment, constrained environment. So for these tough times, school is going to be an important safety net, a unique place to build a resilience. So with schools, when we start reopening, and we welcome children who will be really different from the students uh, which we packed in mid of March, then we need to be placing into a comfort, guided, and good relationship zone. So I recommend and prioritize all the school leaders who are there to start planning before the reopening of the schools and step up once again to play a significant role for our children. For this, I have put down certain points on which we can work. That the first thing is teachers training, that making learning a skilled skill. If we really want our education to move online, we must start with the making of teachers and all cadres comfortable and well versed with technology and how it can be used effectively in the delivery of education. Because without teacher first getting comfortable with technology, students cannot reasonably be expected to perform beyond a certain degree. And this is going to be a half-baked policy, and our measures are going to go for a ride if we don't work on the teachers, because the centrality of the role of the teacher in the process of education is undoubtedly unexplained. And this, in this era when digital supremacy has taken the virtual classrooms and the teacher has taken the role of a digital collaborator, we need to work on that. However, like there are variations of teachers. Some teachers can be ill-equipped with no sense of purpose, of ambiguous motivations. and no sense of responsibility can be damaging. So for a true teacher, teaching should not be a technique, it should be a way of life. So we as leaders need to promote this in the teaching. All okay? Am I audible?
You are audible.
Okay.
Somebody had an interruption. No worry. No worry. Everything is fine.
Okay. So, like a great artist who would rather stuff his creative work, let us burn the desire to teach and teach the teacher to be teachers. It is of utmost importance that if we discover it within ourselves and promote this teacher training to the best way possible. And the following points which have been listed on the screen can be for references how we can empower the teachers. That is, first is making learning a skilled skill. So here I mean to say that regardless of the age or status in life or success level, you will never be exempted from the lessons. You need to learn in order to continue growing. This should be a a mantra for the teachers, because sometimes we face a problem, we face a challenge, and it's in the case history of all the schools that the age factor and the experience factor also goes into the head of the teachers, and they say that they know much and they don't want to learn new things. So this will not work. We need to inspire these teachers and take them into the journey of new transitional changes that are needed for this current education system. Then teachers have to be role models, which every one of us agree, and they should remain ever cheerful and blissful, because another quality of a good teacher is the ability to communicate with positive vibrations and to explain and illustrate all the concepts. Because besides these qualities, the teacher needs to be possessing the quality of tolerance also, because the children are facing a lot of stress. They are into an anxious situation, and the total transition in the personality has taken place. So we need to be real patient with our students when we open our schools. And the next point is quality of teaching is of critical importance. This is very important thing, and the objective should be a challenge to the students to that, and they should get the best teachers, and to encourage the teachers to form bonds and associations with the children. We must inspire our students, and we must inspire our teachers, and we must train them to develop firm commitment through rigorous training, excellent educational leadership training, and with suitable incentives being given to the teachers. Only then a teacher can generate curiosity right from the primary level position to the senior secondary and generalize the levels of all the teaching patterns. And the next is value of service. Here, there has been a complete shift in communication, and the system has gone in for a complete change in the way we used to communicate. Because previously, the way in which the modern teaching is right now during lockdown and the post-pandemic is not requiring the traditional means of paper, pencil, and word-of-mouth communication. It has given way to exchanging information through a variety of physical devices which are being available for us, and it has become imperative, therefore, to productively use this with efficient working, and we should not be found wanting massive information resources, but we should wholeheartedly embrace this technology and the change in the communication technology, which is no longer a choice but has become a imperative aid for the teacher community. So this needs to be dwelling in the teacher's daily teaching pattern. And as we all know that there are whole new packages of training materials, like many companies are coming with that. And day before yesterday, we had a Microsoft training program for our teachers, which happens to be a very good training package and for online classes and everything. So have all the information system through all these digital upgrades. Then these were the 4 things regarding the teachers training. And then if we focus on the second most important point, which is the curriculum and assessment, which requires a lot of collaborative planning, focuses and understanding the needs in order to review, redesign this, because what we had planned, what the academic planning was there, has been all put into a backlog, and we are redesigning the syllabus following the next guidelines so that we incorporate differentiated instruction and enable learning. So COVID has become a key aspect of a key aspect in a situation where we need to cope up and ensure that our services are being delivered in the best way possible. Because what is missing is face-to-face communication, which will get restored and then things get to new normal. But students have to make for bigger adjustments, as learning has always been there in classrooms, which they can't go now, and it is still in a dilemma as to when they will join. Besides this, many of them may not be equipped with technology tools to avail of remote learning. My school faced a lot of problem because many parents did not even have a smartphone. So this lockdown has accelerated the adoption of digital technology. This was an ideal time to experiment new tools to make educational delivery very meaningful to students who can't go to the campus. And this chance has been more efficient and productive while developing the new professional skills and knowledge through. We never imagined that we could be taking online assessments, but this crisis made us do that. So this unanticipated transition has taught us to implement, devise, redevise, apply, and redesign new concepts and get acclimatized to the best thing that is suitable for our system. So now the system has there is a shift of the teaching pattern, that is, first it should be teacher centric, but now it has become student centric. So by this, I mean to say that we have been talking about the virtual classrooms and the online tools that we are applying, but these tools are allowing us to make the engagement between the teacher and the students as close to a real in classroom type. All these Zoom, like today, we are not able to meet each other at in India International Center, but we are able to do the same learning in this sort of an environment. So these tools can make teachers and parent meetings as well as staff management meetings more time saving and provide all the necessary information by interaction. So pedagogy in digital education has become a beautiful link between the teacher and the student. To name them, I can put it like, look, the MHRD and NCRT have taken various steps like Swayam, ePathshala, then NEET. This is by ICT based on the PPP model to enhance the employability skill. The NDL, which is this learning resource window. So all these things are very easily available, and we need to promote all these things and act as catalyst to promote the best way of teaching methodology. Prioritize continuity. So by this, I mean to say that we need to build a rapport with the challenging tasks. For example, the children who are anxious, we need to build up a rapport and convert the anxiety into comfort. And when planning the classes for teachers, school should prioritize hiring teachers who are more familiar with students and avoid new teachers, and so that the students become comfortable. We can also pair up new teachers with the old teachers so that the students get into the comfort zone. And the second is like we can have we can keep contact with non-returning students, which is very important, because this has been an open option for the parents that they can send the child to school, or if they don't want, then they are free for that. So the school staff should be encouraged to stay in contact with the students whose parents decide to keep them home in order to check them and support them and accompany them through various methods which suits them. So continuity in building up this bond between the students and the parents will enable them to go forward with the anxiety level, to lessen the anxiety which they are having. Then we need to focus on the psychological and academic well-being. So by this, I mean to say that we should have a clear plan for maintaining academic and social skills, because this will help into limit the delays that some children may experience. School should need resources to hire specialists such as education experts also and psychologists to get the students out from the vulnerability which they are facing. So we need to focus on this also. And then we should build up school community partnership. So yesterday, Vatsala ma'am's session had very well stated all these community partnership programs. And because it gives a collective response to the needs of the children and showcases what the families are going through, and more sharing leads to more comfort, and more comfort leads to more trust. So school principals should contact community organizations, compile all the resources and share information with families, and let the parents see the full commitment of the teachers and the passionate teachers who are working and who are ensuring that the child is the most important person to be there in the school. So this will help them in building up a very close relationship with the school. Then I come on to one very effective transition that has taken place, which I named it as multi-pronged effect. So this basically means it's about building resilience with the organizational culture, and with the multi-part process, which should begin by a little, what do you say, a layman word, which is overhauling of the syllabus. That means the curriculum needs to be redesigned. We can always work on the curriculum to redesign it, and the aim should be that it should sensitize the upcoming generations towards crisis, conflicts, climate change, health catastrophes. And while teaching them, we should teach them to cope up with the situations that came up, like this COVID-19 had just popped in. So this was like, if we train them to from now that crisis can occur anytime, anywhere, then we can promote building resilience in them. And this building resilience can add to another change and totally transform the students, because resilience, by resilience we mean that the ability to, what do you say, to bounce back. And in any adverse situation, like we have on 14th of June, we came across the suicide news of a very intelligent and dynamic actor, Sushant Singh Rathod. Like all the media and everything, they are cooking up all stories, but what we as educators should focus on, like what made him do this? That was only that he lacked the resilience power, and he could not face the adverse situations in his life. His expectation, his aspirations, his aim, his future, all his things were going very smoothly till the time everything was up to his expectation and up to his knowledge, happiness. But the moment the adverse situations came, he chose the easy way out, that is suicide. So we need to sensitize our children to face these situations with lots and lots of resilience. So these were the things that came into my mind. And today, moving forward with the towards the second part of my presentation, I would like to give a break for a 1.5 minute with a little definition of what I would like to go forward with, that is resilience. So this small clipping will enable us to understand actually what I want to go forward with, and it will help me to take a break to have a sip of water also, and then we join after 1 minute. Till then, just enjoy this short movie and get the message very strongly what I want to say in the coming few minutes.
What does it look like?
It looks like me.
That's right. I want you to do everything that you can to knock your toy down. Who is the strongest in class? Sharon, come on up, please. I'm going to try to knock it off the table. Ready, Sharon? Okay, children, who can tell me what it means to have resilience? Yes, Paige?
Resilience means if you make the toy fall down, it can get up very, very fast.
Very nice.
Very simple way to explain what actually resilience. Even the strongest boy could
share the presentation. Amrita, share the presentation. Now it's all right. Perfectly all right.
So even the strongest boy could not help the toy to stand up. What does it mean? It simply means that if you are having the ability to bounce back to any sort of adverse situations and recover from disasters and conflicts, then we will accelerate towards our growth. So schools can develop and work upon, like the Major General Dheer had taken up a beautiful presentation on resilient leadership. So this gave me an idea, like we as leaders are getting ourselves trained by our mentors of how to put up a unique style of resilient leadership. So why should we not promote and help our children to develop this? And General Dheer had beautifully demonstrated it with a very short PPT, and he showcased the strong points that it's only you who can stop you from training into the leadership. So the current situation is a clear indication of how our country was unprepared to continue a seamless discovery of education. So right now, I strongly feel, and everybody does, what do you say, like everybody does believe in this, that there's a dire need of resilience and we need to change this rapidly. And I will again quote Major Dheer's words, what he said about VUCA. We need to be volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous. So working on this, what he promoted, I would like to go forward with how we as school leaders, through the education of a school, we can build resilience in our students. So after the schools open, there's generally what we do, we change policies and we become alert when something unwanted happens. But why? Like, why is it that like we start training and we become aggressively active in bringing about a change when something uncanny happens? So, like, what we need to sensitize in our minds and as well as in our children is that we need to put forward certain situations that are very well mentioned in the encyclopedias and in social ethics, that these will come sooner or later. So we need to train them, and training them to cope in such situations and in traumatic situations. These are going to make the students socially and emotionally like they are going to be their wellness is going to improve, and this is going to promote a very positive academic outcome also, because when they are strong from the minds, they will perform undoubtedly better in academics. So we as school institutions, we should work on the individual behavior, attitude and competencies. That means like we should take care of the physical health and develop a support resilient programs regarding physical health, which can include guiding them how like ways to have good sleeps, ways to eat well, what to eat, how to eat, and like for each age group how much diet is required. We can promote more of dietary classes and make them enjoy good health. Like, good health should not be as a chapter in social studies or in biology. It should be on a regular basis, that the students make them a part of their general behavior. Like, it should not be an agenda. And the second thing is, we need to, as schools, we need to develop the social and emotional competencies, and we need to promote resilience, which includes a lot of stress management, which a sense of control over one's life. Again, the example goes back to the actor Sushant Singh Rathod. He has left a very strong impact on the youngsters and even to us. Like, he didn't have control over his emotions, his trauma. Like, we are nobody to comment on it, because what agony he was undergoing. But all said and done, the thing that is going to work is resilience, that the ability to bounce back. So the children need to be guided with positive relationships, self-regulation, and how to promote like they should be guided on promotion of self-esteem, and their goal setting should be guided with hopefulness. They should not be give up soon. They should be taught certain things, and they should be coached on not to give up. And this motivation and perseverance from our end are going to make them socially competent, and they're going to achieve high goals. And
आपल्या याच्यावर
promote more general skills, more problem solving areas need to be put forward in them. And we need to develop the intellectual abilities more than the content. So all these things are going to make them, and these things are going to sensitize their intellectual ability. So as school leaders, we need to go forward with all these cognitive competencies, and then we are going to work on a common platform. Then we need to being into the school, being educationists, we need to outreach the family and community, because a positive and a supportive family always includes warmth, bondage, and a positive parenting style with less expectations and more of guidance, more of morale booster. So if we outreach the parents and we guide them the mentoring process for their child, then these things are going to help them fight all the adverse situations. Then the school support. So this basically, we need to promote positive connections between staff and students, and between school and the home also. And we should promote an environment which optimizes more of forgiveness, less of drawing judgments, and give students the chance to improve. Then, being teachers, we need to reinforce qualities which undoubtedly promotes a lot of resilience. And we should focus on failure or negative. We should avoid focusing on failures. Sorry, I said it wrong. We should avoid focusing on failures or negative behaviors of the children. And we should teach them by examples, which is a more effective approach. And we should apply restorative techniques. And Professor Handu has always promoted a problem to be addressed as a challenge. So the moment a problem is being defined as a challenge, it fosters a feeling of competence and self-driven efficacy. So all these high expectations should be laid down to the students, and we need to set a realistic, achievable goal, short-term goals, long-term goals, and guide them throughout. So all these things are going to help them and get a better resilience and better fighting and capacities towards adverse situations. So one more thing I want to say is that in addition to all these strategies, schools can use to help students provide support to parents by sponsoring parents-teacher meeting, by staying flexible, because when children respond to a traumatic event, every student will have a different style of recovery. So it's high time that we as education leaders, we avoid the concept of that one size will fit all. So there are various sizes for each garment. So we cannot generalize this thing that one size will fit all the students. So we need to segregate them into various situations and act differently to each response of the student towards any sort of trauma or any sort of stress. Because after a traumatic event, students always feel nervous, anxious, and they try to keep away from everything. So here, then we need to be very vigilant, and like being heads, we can provide extra support to teachers through training them so that they are well versed in all these crisis management, like mental crisis, mental trauma, and they know how to connect their teaching and convert their teaching into teacher support material. So this way we can help the students recover from a traumatic phase. So my next slide is saying about how we can build resilience in students. So the step one says that process for building resilience, it says that teach students to identify their stress. So this is very important. In the last few days, we all have noticed that there is an increase in stress, anxiety, and depression. And this has causes intense pressure.
Change this slide, Amrita. Amrita, change this slide. Move to the next slide. That's right. That's right. Thank you.
This increase in stress and anxiety has led to some sort of depressive syndromes also. It may be subjective. I am not generalizing it. And this has caused intense pressure in the minds of the students to perform academically. And with the changing trend of the education system, no matter whatever the cause is, the students' inability to cope up with the stress is going bizarre. And here, as an educator, our goal should be to help students build self-awareness. They need to be successful in life. That should be promoted. And this can be promoted with a lot of like communication. And because the more as I said previously, the more we communicate, the more we build in trust and more stronger the bondage is. Then we need to, the step one says that unless and until the student identifies their stress, and they should identify, not only identify, they should identify how they feel and why they feel this way afterwards, because students and when they feel so, they are going to share these stressors verbally with each other, and this will enable them to build a community of trust where they feel safe and heard. I again repeat, if the students feel safe and heard, they are going to share their stressors with the teachers, and which should be judgment free. I will again put these two words, judgment free, which is a little challenging, but we all can do it. So let the students breathe freely so that they come and hug you mentally, and they feel confident that the teacher is there to support them and understand them without judging them. Then the step two is identify what students normally do when presented with stressors. And these steps I tell students to write down their instinctive and initial reaction to each stressor without stopping to think about whether it is good or bad. You just write it. Like when we wrap up the IECS workshops at India International Center and we get the feedback form on the last day, like sir has always promoted that you just write down whatever you feel. It's nothing to do with good or bad and somebody is going to draw conclusions about you. So this is actual total honesty is needed during this step in order for us to mobilize Professor Handu's system of being aware of what his mentees are undergoing. So these feedbacks really help, and this is a very good method of helping the students helping the students to outreach these stress points, and we can prepare a worksheet where one goes for worst reaction for as 5 and go for the best reaction as some one number, and we can discuss each point with the students so that they have a clear picture of how to write the reactions. So this is very important that the students need to identify. Then the third step is brainstorm. Like, it is an alternative way to respond to every stress. During this step, the idea of coping skills, the conscious effort, and how to minimize the stress, what are the conflicts that are going on in the minds of the students with real life examples, and what if they are not able to cope up skills, then tell them what can be the possibility and give them a structured perspective to their identified stressors. This is very important to make sure that every student understands what coping skills are, as well as the idea that students then compile a list of 5 coping strategies themselves that would work for them, because as I said that every size is different for every child. Like, we cannot put one size for all. So let the child define his own coping strategies and let him feel that those strategies are unique to them. And students should put the best part that will work. Like, when I was in IIM for one of the trainings, one thing that was always promoted, that our reaction should be original. It should not be predefined by any sort of feelings that if I say this, then what is the other person going to think? And this is what I learned from there, and I tried to bring in my school also. The organizational culture has this very important thing that is there, is that every teacher has their own original reaction to everything. Nobody thinks twice in suggesting, or nobody thinks like what the other person is going to say. So this sort of culture has to be developed in the student's mind also, that nobody is going to judge you, and whatever I say, my original reaction will be acknowledged. And this way the students will discuss more with the teachers, and the outcome of any situation are going to come out with all possibilities. So then the step 4, that is practical application and maintenance of coping skills. So I would like to share one thing, like, which I did. I built time into each class period. For an exercise I called 5-minute fix. And for these 5 minutes, students can share how they used the coping skills in real life situations. Situations were given, and the children were asked how they used the coping skills. They can ask for feedback and advice from peers, provide suggestions to those who are struggling. Then this is going to build up a lot of self-awareness, self-regulation, and resilience is definitely going to be a part of it. And most importantly, these skills are the ones that will benefit them long after they leave the classrooms. Then step 5, everyday strategies for building children's resilience. So this is for the teachers, that reading a story to students about people who have overcome different situations. Teachers could have students write a list of books about people who have overcome adversity. And we can work on they need to be sure to include stories and books about a diverse range of people, including women also. And we should pick up new personalities, like what history has created can be left for the curriculum. And we can pick up very normal people so that they connect those people with their situations, and people from a range of cultural backgrounds and people with disabilities, how they have faced the challenges of their lives and how they have coped out from that. So this will really build up their confidence and develop the resilience towards adverse situations also. Step 6, that is other possible activities, which includes and which promotes a very beautiful sentence that it is okay. It is okay is a very beautiful punchline for situations to come out from any adverse situations. Talk to the children about when they might need support, such as when something bad happens, when they are going through a difficult time, or when they need to talk to someone about how they are feeling. What they are feeling, give them a backlog. How they are feeling should be worshipped and developed. So this is going to give a confidence in the child. Then step 7 is all about explaining to the children that facing challenges in life can be useful also. Nobody has thought about this, but if we go into the mind psychology, every challenge is very useful as a learning lesson. They help us to grow as a person and give us knowledge and skills that make us better prepared for the next time. And I take pride that this lockdown has really made me more susceptible to changes, more resilient to situations, and leading from the front has worked out. And n number of things has been seen in all the teachers also. Everybody has really changed to these challenges for the better. Like the situations can be adverse, but the remedies that we have taken is for the betterment, and we are confident about it that whatever will happen, we are going to make way out. So in these in times of challenges, children should be given the what do you say, the children should be guided that whatever you do will be empathized. Like for example, if a teacher is reading a book to a group of children about a character who is having a difficult time, ask them how they would feel if they were experiencing the same things as the characters, and get the things out from the children. So this way we get to know the children also, and when the children speak their mind out, they brainstorm what they are feeling and how they are perceiving the challenge to be, and how they will like to go about with the problem solving. And this is how we will save children and avoid many Sushant Singh Rathod. So this can really work. Then the step 8 will be encourage children while undertaking a challenging task and promote them, promote the environment that supports a child, and develop a sense of belonging, and give them good titles like Prince Charming, and like every day different notations and different titles can help the children come out in these challenging times. And a very important and this has become a mandatory cure for such situations, is that we need to focus on the well-being, the wellness. So not only the PTIs, all the teachers can incorporate mindfulness, breathing activities, or other relaxation techniques into everyday routines and activities in educational settings. So these were the steps that can help the child bring up the resilience in him or her, and we as educators can promote all these steps in our educational parameters. You attract what you fear, you become what you hate. This was a session which was being moderated by Dr. Ashok Pandey, and this was being taken by Swami Chidrupanandji. From that session, I took this quote, which he said, "You attract what you fear, you become what you hate." So, a vision to carry out our education and to bear the non-conducive environment and evolve to the need of the future education with some new skills as a part of practice. So as leaders, we need to be converting the work situations with a approach and outlook, and which can be achieved with a benign vision. And as leaders, we need to be compassionate, with patience, with lots of optimism, because in these situations, the mind has a tendency to be attracted by negative thoughts. So here is a time where you need to deal with yourself with head, deal yourself with heart, negotiate calmly, analyze wisely, intervene timely, and comply non-reactionary. Remember, path opens before you when you have your eyes open. So, before I sign off, I would like to share a few mantras which I have noted down in my mind, and those are like when I talk about wellness. So we need to open up the paths to the child to have a new approach towards more of mind control and meditation and thinking, and like the center point which is there on your forehead. From there the thought process starts. So like the child should have control over his breathing, and this really helps. Like if the breathing technique is being taught to the child has a lot of control over his mind and what he feels from the heart. So, my dear friends, like we as educators should teach one value, one quote every day. And in this time of online teaching and all, let the parents also listen to that. Let the parents also be shared with those that one quote. It can be an original thought also from a teacher. Every time we need not like borrow it from any books of quotes or anything. Let that thought be an original thought, because like I remember when I was in class 6 and I wrote 3 lines, and to quote it, I had written down, I have no yesterday's, time took it away, tomorrow may not be, but I have today. And unknowingly, these 3 lines have become the philosophy of my life till date. And I work on that, because enjoying for the moment is the biggest gift that one can give to oneself. So these values which are engraved in yourself has to be promoted by the teachers. Whatever you are having, share it with the teachers. And it is very well said that in my last session of Happy Schools, like I had quoted that if one doesn't have that thing, we cannot give it to anybody. So we should first possess these things, and then we should talk about like distributing it and sharing it. So make children develop new habits, focus on building and fostering relationships. And because when the heart is tensed, no learning can take place. And please know and promote that spirituality and interconnectivity with relations is the silver line that holds on to each other. This is very important. And when teachers can do moving forward, look for opportunities and share this beautiful bondage, the child is going to have a transitional change in an ideal state, and with intellectual bars being raised, and more spiritual upliftment will be there of the children, and we are going to have an ideal environment, school environment, and a very good organizational culture. Because when we learn how to become resilient, we learn to embrace the beautifully broad spectrum of the human experience. Where the vision is 1 year, we cultivate flowers. Where the vision is trees, where the vision is for 10 years, we cultivate trees. But where the vision is for eternity, we cultivate people. So take care of your loved ones, take care of your body, embrace the change, avoid complaining, and take care of yourself. Thank you so much.